Calling all nerds!
Hey, get over here. He's calling all nerds.
Oh, jeez. Here come the nerds. It's time to talk to the interested and interesting.
I was wondering when the nerd would come.
And here's your host, Mike Thayer.
Well, hello. What an epic introduction that was. All right, I am Mike Thayer, the host of Calling All Nerds. This is my first ever episode of the podcast where I talk to the interested and interesting. So first off, what does that mean? Second off, who am I anyway, and why would you want to listen to me? I will answer both of those, and then we're going to dive straight into the conversation I had with my brother. He'll be the first ever interview. He is a psychologist, an Air Force captain, an all-around interesting dude, and a fellow nerd. So interested and interesting. What does that mean? So to be successful in life, you got to be those two things, at least in my eyes, interested and interesting. So I have lived a bit all over the world, born and raised in Provo, Utah. I served a mission for my church in Italy for 2 years, came back, finished my degree in chemical engineering, and then went and moved over to Texas, where I spent the next 10 years in oil and gas, just 5 in Texas, then I went 3 in Australia, and then 2 in Montana. I have recently quit my day job. We'll talk about more of that later. So again, sort of my travels all over the world. I have met all sorts of people, and I love talking to people from all walks of life. Creativity is a big focus of mine, and to me, creativity means the ability to solve a problem multiple different ways. So that's at least part of the definition. So how many different ways can you go about solving the same problem? Creative people come up with lots of different ways. Now, in order to be creative, I think you got to talk to lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds, understand how they solve problems, and then sort of absorb those and be able to sort of solve problems differently. So as an engineer, I am very interested in how people solve problems, which is how that ties into creativity. So I love talking to different people. I love seeing what makes them tick. I like breaking down their creative processes. I like understanding how they have been successful and the steps that it took to become successful. I think for some reason, we tend to think that success is created overnight. I like the term, I was an overnight success, over thousands of nights that I stay up and work. There's a poem that has sort of guided me in my life, and it is, great heights by men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward in the night. That's by Longfellow, I believe. Yeah, to me, that is what it's all about, right? Is overnight success, is toiling up in the night when everyone else is asleep. And any successful person that I've met, they do things a bit differently, but I like to hear their success stories, how they went from basically dire straits, starving student to, huge international phenomenon, or just a success in their field, whatever success they might have or measure of success. So I'm going to talk to a lot of successful people, a lot of creative people, a lot of just flat out interesting people, just to kind of see what makes them tick. I've got a couple of my interviews already lined up. Again, we'll talk to my brother. This conversation I have with Steve is awesome. It's exactly what I'm trying to get after. The first 30 minutes, we talk shop. We talk movies. We talk Avengers. We talk Logan. We talk A Quiet Place. And then we move on to talking about following your dreams. So each of my podcasts, hopefully each of my episodes will have sort of a different topic that I address with the person, the interviewee. But I want to do long-form conversations. I want to do an hour-long or an hour-and-a-half-long conversations where I sit down and talk with people to really get to the guts of what they think. I really like podcasts like Joe Rogan where you sit down and you have time to talk through things, to express yourself, to make mistakes, to realize that not all conversations are super clean and soundbite worthy, that you don't have everything figured out, and that it's okay to say things that aren't necessarily popular, and you can still be a great person, even if you hold some beliefs that aren't completely mainstream. And I think you get that over the course of an hour and a half conversation or an hour conversation. So that's what I like to do. I like to sit down, have a raw conversation, talk about stuff that interests me and that interests the other person, to break down their creative processes and what has brought them success. So why have I started this podcast now at this point in my life? So I just turned 34. As I said, I spent 10 years in oil and gas. It took me all over the world. I had a great career. but the right side of my brain was dying, this creative part. When I told people I was, back in college, I was becoming an engineer, they'd be like, what? You're way too creative for that. Now look, there is creative problem solving in engineering, but I totally understood what they were saying. I've always thought myself as a pretty creative person. I probably could have pursued different creative career paths. Chose engineering. It was a good, solid job. I don't regret that one bit. It is, as I said, it's taken me all over the world. I've had fantastic experiences. My father is a creative writing professor, was a creative writing professor. My mother was editor. She was a professor of English as well, lawyer. And I come from a very diverse family. So I'm the youngest of 6. My oldest sister is an actress and a dialect coach. My oldest brother is also an engineer, chemical engineer. Then I have my other brother. Other oldest brother is James. He is a lawyer. Then my sister Katie is like creative genius entrepreneur. And then my other brother is a psychologist. Then I'm an engineer. And I kind of feel like I am a combination of all my siblings. I'm the Deadpool of the Thayer family, all dumped together. So I got a bit of kind of everybody. I like doing accents and voices, kind of like my sister, engineer, kind of like my brother, kind of like to argue and break things down, kind of like lawyer down on things. Like my other brother, I'm a big nerd, like Steve. We go about things differently, but we're headed in the same direction. Like if I want to know something to buy my brother or figure out something to buy my brother for birthday or for Christmas, I just think about what I want. And then my sister, sort of entrepreneur, creative, kind of mindset. So I've got a little bit of all that inside of me. And then this last 2 years in particular, work was getting pretty gnarly. And then my father passed away last year, and I started reevaluating some things and decided that I really wanted to pursue some creative endeavors. Now, for the last 10 years, I've been writing in the evenings. It took me 7 years to write one big, humongous, epic fantasy book that has never and may never see the light of day. Revised it a bunch and got a beta read and edited and all this stuff. Submitted to agents. None of that panned out. 2 years ago, when we moved to Montana, I began writing a kid's fantasy book. So the series is called The Epic Adventures of the Techno Wizard. The first book, Passage to Avalon, came out April of 2018. The next book, The Uncharted Lands, should come out December of 2018. So I have self-published these novels. I wouldn't have it any other way. I've been able to do the audiobook myself. I've been able to do all this sort of marketing and really dig in on this entrepreneur side of life that I haven't really done. So I just kind of felt like it was time to pursue what I wanted, to try to monetize my passions. I knew after my dad died that if I didn't jump ship and didn't do what I loved and what I was passionate about, that I would regret it for the rest of my life. And I'm a man that's plagued with far too many passions, right? I like hunting, although I am entirely inept at it. I'm a viral blogger. I came out with a blog post a couple years ago. They got like 250,000 views in 48 hours. That was pretty cool. As I said, degreed engineer. I'm a father of 3, lucky husband. I'm a decent impressionist. I'll be doing a lot of different voices, and I'll be working on different impressions and stuff and accents during the podcast. So you'll see a lot of those. I'm an erstwhile jock, so played a lot of football in high school. Injured my back when I was 19. Had back surgery when I was 26, I think it was, and I had to be really careful since then. So sort of in my convalescence, the nerd inside of me has taken center stage. So I've written this book. I love this book. Passage to Avalon is epic, and it's awesome, and it's so cool, and I love presenting at schools. It's opening up tons of doors, and I'm really just kind of diving in. So I quit my job just a couple of weeks ago. I wanted to start this podcast. I haven't had time to talk to people. And like I said, I love to talk to people, see what makes them tick. I haven't had time to sit down and talk to all these cool people in my life, or to reach out and sort of expand my sphere of influence and my community, sort of. But now I've got the opportunity. So I want to start this podcast. As I said, I've got a lot of opinions floating around in my head, and some of them haven't gelled, some of them have, and I just like to kind of try them on a couple folks and see what they think and kind of see what makes them tick, as I've said. So that's a little bit about who I am and where I come from. One other thing I was going to say is during my last couple of years at work, my desktop background was Chateau Dif. So why was it Chateau Dif? So as I said, I have no complaints about my career. I worked for a fantastic company, and they were very good to me. The last couple of years, I said, were very rough, extremely time-consuming. I know what it's like to try to start up a refinery in the Montana in the winter. That should be enough said there. But my desktop background was Chateau Dif because that's what I felt like my right brain was stuck in. So Chateau Dif, for those that don't know, was the prison that Edmond Dantes stayed in Count of Monte Cristo for 14 years until he finally broke free, right? So every single night he was digging under the floor. He'd come up, he'd hide the dirt and, in the cups that they took away and stuff. And he didn't know where he was digging. He didn't know whether he was digging to freedom or digging to the guard shack or digging to a cliff or digging to nowhere. But every night he dug. And eventually he found the abbot and this old guy that taught him all this sort of skills that once he escaped, he ascended to the Count of Monte Cristo and got his revenge and everything else. But that's what I felt like I was doing. Every single night, I would come home after taking my beatings and my lickings for 12 hours, and I would come home and I would write. Sometimes it was 400 words, sometimes it was 800 words, sometimes it was 100, but I would just scrape a little bit of dirt. I would actually make the motion of my wife and then hold up my hand, my palm, as if I just scraped away a handful of dirt. A little handful. I was not going to take my beatings during the day at Chateau Dif and not come home and scrape away a little bit of dirt. And actually, the harder work got, the more time-consuming work got, the more I dug. You'd think it'd be the opposite. You'd think it'd be the more I just licked my wounds or I, tried to recover. But no, the longer I worked during the day, the more I worked during the night writing. And as I said, I still don't know where it's leading to. I've kind of like punched the guard and taken the keys and made a break for it right now. I'm stuck in the tunnel and I'm digging and I don't know where it's going. So I'm hoping it's going to freedom. At the very least, maybe a nicer room in Chateau Dif. I don't know. But that's what I felt like. I felt like every single night I was just going to do a little bit and dig a little bit and hopefully it leads to freedom. And hopefully I'm garnering the skills right now to make my ascent to my own personal Count of Monte Cristo. But I just kind of felt like it was time. There's a time where Edmond Dantes is like, let's do this. Let's go for broke. I'm staying in the tunnel. If this thing collapses, I'm dead. If not, I'm going to freedom. So that's where I'm at right now. This is one of those things. I want to monetize my passions. I want to funnel all of the things that I've always wanted to do into my brand and do them, right? It sounds cliche to say, but you got one life to live, and my life was headed towards a very big change. And had the guts to make the change and had the support from my family to make the change, and here I am. So again, that's about me. I won't rehash this stuff in further episodes, but wanted to get a little bit of a background of where I was coming from and who I was. But yeah, let's launch into this conversation with my brother Steve. I said it goes for about an hour and a half, but it's good stuff. We talk about following our dreams, and we also break down some recent movies, why we liked them, why we didn't. I think it's all pretty interesting stuff, and it's hopefully a very good template for things to come. So breaking things down from a nerd perspective, but then going off and talking about some really meaty, life-changing stuff. Enjoy. Whoop, I almost forgot. It bears mentioning that my brother and I start our conversation off by commenting on our physical appearance because we're talking to each other on Skype and looking at how bald and fat-headed we are. So just not to confuse you, that's where the conversation begins. I promise it goes up from there. Okay, enjoy. I'm right on the edge. That's why I started taking the Propecia. I'm right on the edge where like this section right here, it's pretty thin city. If I lose that,
yeah,
might as well
Ricky
just
Gervais, who has a funny bit in his new stand-up special about like being in an elevator and having the light go through and being like an X-ray, and he can see his scalp.
Yeah. Dude, I'm just worried about how fat my head is. I don't know how you get a fatter head. Like I get how you like your cheeks can get like this should be fatter, and I get like my double chin gets fatter, but like how does my skull stopped growing when I was like 8 or whatever it was? I don't know. When does the friggin' platelets set?
The tectonic plates.
Yeah. When do the plates set?
Guys who take HGH,
get bigger friggin' heads. Yeah, no joke.
Like friggin' Stallone, Sylvester Stallone's got a head the size of a freaking grapefruit.
I still remember the Simpsons episode where they all take steroids and like Ken Griffey Jr.'s head is like ginormous. Do you remember that? Do you remember that one? Where they all take steroids and it's like all the baseball players and they're like, it just like, I don't know. I just remember like this picture of all these different baseball players and one of them's like in a wheelchair with this ginormous head.
Oh yeah. I do remember that.
They're like they're playing Shelbyville or something, and so they get all the professional baseball players. It's weird to think that Simpsons has gone on for 30 seasons. Like I know Simpsons totally good. I only know Simpsons up to like season 12.
Yeah.
There's been like the vast majority of Simpsons episodes I've never even seen. But
I loved the Halloween episodes, man.
Yeah, we
I would
grew
look
up
forward
on
to
the
the
Simpsons.
Halloween episodes every October.
Crazy thing is, when we were watching Simpsons all the time, I don't think I would let my kids watch Simpsons. The only Simpsons they've watched is when we were in line for the Simpsons ride at Universal. They had like a bunch of Simpsons episodes up on TVs while you were in line, and the kids were dying laughing. There was some like Itchy and Scratchy. I'm like, geez, man, I'm not gonna show that to my kids. But like, we watched it all the time growing up. I don't know.
Yeah.
In some ways, I'm like way more protective. In other ways, we're obviously way further gone with what the kids get exposed to these days. But like, in some respects,
Netflix
no.
terrifies me, man.
Oh,
Netflix
dude.
terrifies me because there's no way to like, unless you limit access to Netflix entirely, you can't keep them on the kids' profile. They can just, if they log on to Netflix from an iPad or something. Oh, I wonder what's on Dad's profile.
There's no like password protect to get on the parent one?
Nope.
Well, we don't have anything on there, so I'm wondering, but yeah.
But it doesn't matter because they can go to a non-kids, like, because Netflix will, like, the kids' profiles will cater the suggested content.
Sure, but it's nothing stopping them from going into
to just an adult profile and just scrolling through all the different movies and seeing some thumbnail. It's super.
Well, and then you hover on a movie and then it will show you the fucking trailer or show it. Yeah. Some of them are freaking gnarly. Like you hover over Death Note for 2 seconds. It's like
decapitation.
Some guy get decapitated by a ladder on a service van.
Max is obsessed with Venom. He saw the Venom trailer and he's like, Dad, they better not make it rated R. And I'm like, dude.
Yeah, it's rated R.
I think it's going to be rated R. He's like, well, maybe you could watch it and just like, I can close my eyes and plug my ears. And
does he have like prior exposure to Venom?
The cartoons. He's seen all the like Spider-Man cartoons. If it comes out on VidAngel, we'll probably let him watch it. But
I don't know how much that's going to be available for you on VidAngel. I mean, it's going to be the whole thing's going to be.
He watched A Quiet Place with me, though. He loved that.
Yeah, Abby was like, Dad, I want to watch a scary movie. I'm turning 11. I was like, all right, we'll go watch A Quiet Place. Like, knees up to her chin, and she was like this, but she watched the whole thing.
Dude, so are we talking about The Quiet Place right now? Because, or do you want to save that? Because I freaking loved that movie. There were some
let's
awesome
talk about it. Yeah,
parts of that movie.
So what I termed to Quiet Place, it wasn't a horror movie. When we left, I said, Abby, it's called a family thriller.
Yeah.
Because horror movies like, what's the freaking word I'm looking for?
It's not a slasher. It's not a demonic possession. There were a lot of jump scares.
Oh, Lovecraftian. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, like H.P. Lovecraft. Like a true horror leaves you with a sense of the horror is inescapable. Like everything you do, like that's the end of a horror is just slightly different from the end of a family thriller or whatever you want to call it. Is that there's a little bit of hope at the end of like Signs or at the end of A Quiet Place or The Village. But at a horror movie, it's like the bad guy wins. He resurfaces. Right. There's that, the epilogue shows that he's still alive. His hand comes through the whatever. And that no matter what you do, no matter what your protagonist went through, it's inescapable.
Mm-hmm. They can't win.
They can't win. And this one is like, they can win. But they got a plan or whatever.
Spoiler alert for people who haven't seen A Quiet Place.
Yeah,
it's been out long enough.
Yeah. But I think the moratorium is passed on spoilers for A Quiet Place.
Dude, that part when the basement is flooded and it comes downstairs and it like goes into the water. I remember I reached over and I grabbed Max like that was so creepy. And then it just rises up. Its head's like
yeah. One of the things that A Quiet Place did that a lot of horror movies don't do is that they showed you the monster in the prologue. Mm-hmm. Usually they keep the monster because usually once you see the monster, then it's not scary anymore. Like do you remember the Langoliers? It was quick, but and I think that's what caught you off guard. Is number one, you don't think they're going to kill the kid right off the bat,
right?
And then number two, you don't think they're going to give you that clear of a shot of it, even though it wasn't super clear, but I think you don't think it's going to happen in broad daylight. That's the difference. Right. Like full lighting, full whatever. You saw something hit the kid, hit him pretty hard.
Right.
So that was different. But so I was kind of taking Abby through all the different points of the movie. Like, What was the midpoint? What was the all is lost moment? What was the resolution? And there's different points depending on which plot line you go. So there's two different plot lines. There's the us versus the monsters, which is kind of like a man versus nature plot line. Because the monsters become nature, they become a force of nature, right? It's like zombies,
like aliens, or
zombies or whatever, right? So there's that, and that's going to have certain beats and certain midpoints and resolutions. But then there's the whole other plot line is obviously kicked off with the kid's death, with the inciting incident, which is the girl blames herself for her little brother's death, and she feels like her dad hates her. And when does that resolve? When is that all is lost moment? When is that midpoint? Because midpoint is when you go from proactive or reactive to proactive. So there's different points when you have what you need to finally resolve the problem, whether you're talking about a relationship or whether you're talking about the monsters.
Right.
And then what the climax is, what the all is lost moment is. So it was interesting to kind of break it down like that, because you were like, well, the climax is a little bit different for when they finally get what they need to kill the monsters versus what the dad finally gets what he needs to resolve the relationship. Yeah,
right.
His daughter. And then the closer you can bring those together, the more powerful it is. If you can you can resolve your multiple story threads at the same time, then it's like super impactful. That's why
same
Logan.
Time with one thing.
That's why Logan was impactful. Because it all came together at the same. Looking back, man, and I've watched Logan 3 times. It's like the best movie ever made.
I've still only seen it once.
Part of it is I immediately recognized all the symbolism. I knew everything, so it like meant a lot to me, because it was like part of my youth.
That character.
Part of my youth, like coming to this beautiful conclusion. But as I was telling Jill, as she looked over and said, "Are you crying?" And I said, look, this means a lot to me. This means a lot to me, Jill. But it was like, I think we talked about this before. Wolverine is always battling two things. Number one, he doesn't have a family because he doesn't remember his past, and he's, and then number two, he's battling his inner demon, right? The rage that's inside of him. So those are the two things that Wolverine always faces. In this, man, they found a brilliant way to symbolically have him do that, and then have him literally do that.
Literally fight himself. Yeah.
Literally fight his rage, and then literally have his family, like his daughter, right? And then in the end, how does he finally beat so they resolve one with the other. So how does he finally beat his rage, both literally and figuratively, with family? Literally. And who kills it? He doesn't kill his rage. His daughter's the one that pulls the trigger and blows his head off. So it's his family that does it. And then it just all resolves at, like, I'm getting chills talking about it. It all resolves at that one moment, and you're just like, oh. Like all like 4 plot lines, 2 figurative, 2 literal, all come together at the same time, and then this sweet release. And then when she takes the cross and turns over an X, I lose it.
Oh, gee, I lost it.
I lose it every time. I just like,
well, and then
what a masterpiece.
What he says when he dies, he's like, so that's what it's like, or something like that. That's how it feels.
Yeah.
And you're left, there's what he meant, what was implied by that statement was like, this is how death feels because he's never died.
Right.
Or this is what family feels like. This is what love feels like. This is what it feels like to be free from the rage. That's
like, again, like I have constant chills for 30 seconds. That is what I watch something like that. There's a few shows. I enjoy a lot of movies and everything, but there's shows that I watch that I go, I want to be a storyteller, because I need to be able to tell something like this, because it's so powerful. It's done so well. Oh man, I absolutely love that movie. It's a brutal movie, and I tell Owen all the time, Dad, when am I able to watch fill in the blank? I was like, look, not under my watch, bud. When you're 18, you can make your own decisions. And he goes, well, so can I like go rob a bank or whatever when I'm 18? That's what he told me tonight. And I was like, sure, dude. So I advise against that, but I guess you could.
It's up to you, dude.
But yeah, that movie right there was like, I need to tell stories, because I want to dissect this and break this down, and I want to be able to do that. Like I remember coming out of that movie being like so jazzed to go write stuff, and and that's what I do. I try to break it down and then peel it back and find what elements are so I can plug and play those elements into my stories. But man, what a freaking awesome moment.
So good.
So good. Yeah, there's very, very few out there that are like that. And then it just meant a lot to me because of where I was at in my life. And I felt like I was coming to a new chapter with this whole writing thing. And part of my youth had died with Dad. And it was just like I rarely had a more emotional experience than sitting. The first time I watched it was by myself. I went by myself, yeah, and I'm just like
your most existential moment of your life was watching Logan.
It was by myself in a movie theater in Billings, and then yeah, so that's how it goes, I guess. But yeah, that was a big one as far as me wanting to tell stories. There's a couple other ones like that, but like what I've gone back into now is like I got a question for you. So what I haven't given you any heads up on this, so if you don't have an answer, I'll just edit it out. But movies that got low Rotten Tomatoes scores that you legitimately like, or that you legitimately think are good, not just like I like it because it's campy and it just sort of scratches my itch, but like I think the vast majority of critics got this wrong because I think this movie is good.
Oh, geez.
So I'll let you think. Well, I got two, and they're both King Arthur. King Arthur back in 2004 and the most recent King Arthur.
I thought the most recent King Arthur was really good.
The most recent King Arthur. I've gone back and like the soundtrack is like what I listen to when I want to get freaking pumped up. Like it's so. First off, I like Guy Ritchie movies, but I thought it was awesome. It had some weird moments in it, but I think like the whole like I don't know if it was supposed to be Morgana, but like the whole like octopus lady in the basement was pretty gnarly, and somebody had some, but it was like cinematography was different, but I liked it. It had a lot of like super cool epic moments. Its take on Excalibur and like the power that it gives him, because that's the thing is like I have Excalibur. It's like, well, you got a sword. What does the sword do? Like there's a lot of iterations with that, and it's just like I got Excalibur. It's a good sword, but this is like he's flipping like Quicksilver and he's like smashing dudes with concussion waves out of Excalibur. I was like, this is sweet. I'm going back and watch that movie, and I'm like, I don't see how people. Which makes me upset because it ended on a really good note. Like the round table is being put together. I want a sequel, and we'll never get the sequel. But
I remember when I saw that because I think I saw it before you, and I was like, "Oh, Mike's gonna love this movie."
Yeah, so I was gonna go. I have a blasted Excalibur in my front lawn. Like if someone's gonna go, it's gonna be me. And then the reviews came out and it was bad, and then both you and Kevin were like, "No, Excalibur's great," or King Arthur's great, and. Sorry, Kevin, but your opinions on movies a lot of times stink. So I was like, well, if Kevin liked it, I don't know. But then you liked it. I was like, okay, yeah, me and Steve like the same movie. So what was the movie that Kevin just railed on? It was one of the Marvel movies or something. He's like, that movie stinks. I was like, what are you talking about? Anyway, Captain America 2, Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier was lame. I was like, you're lame. You're lame, Kevin. No, so that's, I think they full on got King Arthur wrong. Full blown. I just think the mass, which is weird because most of the time when a movie is 70%, I go watch, I was like, okay, I can see why, people would give it 70%. But I think King Arthur was like below 50 on Rotten Tomatoes. And I just like, no, you got it wrong.
Yeah, I can't think of any movies that I would know the freaking Rotten Tomatoes scores.
I'm kind of a Rotten Tomatoes and Box Office Mojo junkie, so it's.
I mean, there's movies that are kind of like my guilty pleasures. Like, hey, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I loved Mortal Kombat for kids.
I thought about
the first CD I ever owned was the soundtrack to the first Mortal Kombat movie. Test your might.
There was some YouTube video I was watching recently of some kid dancing to one of those like old Mortal Kombat, like the
yeah, exactly. Mortal Kombat.
So awesome. The one like a recent example. This is a little bit different, but like, how on earth Black Panther made more domestically than Avengers, than Infinity War?
It made more than Infinity War?
Domestically, it made more than Infinity War. It made 699,000. Worldwide, it pales. It made like half.
I thought it was good, but I didn't think it was the best Marvel
It was
movie.
an average Marvel movie. I would rank both Ant-Man above it.
Yeah.
Infinity War. First off,
Dude.
Infinity War had a better battle at Wakanda than Black Panther did.
It did. It totally
So
did.
it's like, what do you like? I mean, I get why. I think a lot of people are going out supporting it's the first African American.
It means a lot. Yeah, it means a lot to people.
But still, I just didn't know there was that much sentiment to drive that forward to $700 million.
Yeah.
Like, I think Marvel didn't even see it. I mean, Disney probably didn't even see it coming.
Right.
It's crazy to me. It's crazy that we've been building up to this moment in Infinity War for 10 years. And Black Panther just like, I'm going to come along.
I thought they did a good job in Infinity War. I mean, we could probably do like 10 different podcasts on Infinity War.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure we could. I thought Infinity War was done very well.
yeah, I liked it. I mean, like most, you throw that many people in there with that many different powers, you're going to have power plot holes all over the place. Like,
Correct.
I love the How It Should Have Ended YouTube channel. They do those little
Owen
cartoons.
tells me all the time. Yeah, he always.
Oh,
Dad,
dude,
you gotta
yeah.
watch this one. You gotta watch this one. Like what? Which was really weird because they set it up. Like I don't know why they would have had this scene in the movie if they weren't going to use it later on. But when they portal cut off the big dude's hand,
Yeah.
and I was like,
It's like foreshadowing,
You're
right?
just showing us that you can do that. And then it's like, why? So why don't you do that? Like, I get it. There's a huge power balance thing there. So I give a lot of freedom and a lot of forgiveness with a movie with that many superheroes. But I was like, don't tee us up to think that that's possible.
But it would have been a super easy thing to fix because they had the little like wizard battle, the Gandalf or the freaking what's the Harry Potter wizard, the Dumbledore Voldemort wizard battle between Doctor Strange and
Ebony Maw.
and no the one where he's fighting Thanos because they're going back and forth and he like changes his thing into butterflies and all that stuff.
Right.
It's almost like blow for blow the battle between Voldemort and Dumbledore. Like it's basically the same. They could have easily done like a thing where Doctor Strange tries to do that
And it fizzes out.
and he
or
uses
something.
the Infinity Gauntlet and it just like goes it goes like that and then reverses or doesn't work or whatever, because that's what's on like probably 90% of people's minds, like why doesn't he just cut his arm off with a portal? They even use the portal. Spider-Man's jumping in and out of the portals.
And then they set it up to cut off exactly the same amount that exists on the like an Infinity Gauntlet's worth of hand.
Right.
Did he have a fake hand? Did he have like a robot hand after that? Or like something like that? I didn't know. He did? Okay.
But no, instead they do it the old-fashioned way and just hold him down and pull it off of his hand. And then Thor comes flying in there and chops him in the chest. And he's like, you should have aimed for the head? No, hand. You should have aimed for the hand.
Yeah.
When he said, he's like, I'm fully expecting him to say hand.
hand?
And he's like, the head.
The heart. The humerus. So again, this is my big, and I want to get this out there. I want this on record of my worry about Captain Marvel. Mm-hmm. My worry is Captain Marvel, we've already heard from Kevin Feige, she's going to be the most powerful superhero in the Marvel Universe on the good guy side. That terrifies me. I don't care that she's a woman. I don't care about I got 2 daughters. I want them to be dressed up like freaking Captain Marvel. I'm sure we'll have all the Halloween costumes. I want them to have a great woman superhero. She's going to be the face of the fourth phase of the MCU. I'm fine with that. Great. Awesome. However, this phase needs to end with, and I mean, they teed it up that way. All the original Avengers are still alive, but like Thor deserved, and it was so freaking awesome. Like the Infinity Gauntlet couldn't even stop Thor. Like that's the moments I like. Like you set the bad guy up, but then the good guy, he levels up too, and at the very end,
his new axe goes right through
so flippin' sweet. So, but I talked to you about this before. Thor deserves that power because he has leveled up, and we have gone with him for 10 years during his level up process. He has lost his girlfriend. He has lost his dad. He has lost his brother. He has lost his homeland. He has lost half the people. He has lost his hammer. Like, he deserves to get frickin' leveled up to God mode, which he was, and he's got his awesome flippin' new axe. But it's like, if Captain Marvel comes swooping in here, Deus Ex Machina style, to like, I will never forgive the Marvel Universe. I don't. People don't want that. Like, yes, you want a cool superhero that can usher in the next stage, but it's like, if she's the key piece, it's like, introduce it later than 2 months before the final film comes out.
I know.
I'm worried. Right. I'm super worried.
I didn't think about that. That would be annoying. But I think, Ant-Man was kind of a recent addition, and he's going to play a huge role. You saw Ant-Man, right? Ant-Man and the Wasp?
Yeah.
That post-credit scene?
Yeah. So do we think, because all the foreshadowing was that time doesn't behave normally in the quantum space. So you think he's going to go back in time?
Yeah.
And then reverse a lot of this stuff? Because they've got to be able to reverse, I don't know, they could be dropping a bunch of red herrings, but they're like, no, the people are really gone that are gone. I was like, that doesn't make any sense because every single one of those people that are gone have movies. So,
yeah, I think he might go back to like Avengers 1 and reset the course of the whole universe, do like a hard reset. Like
a Days of Future Past style.
Yeah.
But that's like Days of Future Past was erasing friggin' horrible X-Men 3 plotline. Right. So that was welcomed. But what I think could happen is they could go back and Captain dies, Iron Man dies, Hulk will stick around, Thor will stick around. Because in the comics, even people take up the mantle of Iron Man and Captain America.
Right.
So that's easily done. No one's going to take up, I guess there's different versions of the Hulk, but I guess everyone's hinting at like the sentient Hulk.
Professor Hulk.
Yeah. That's what I think's going to happen. So you're gonna have some of the original Avengers are going to have their moment. But again, if it's not like Tony Stark and Captain America freaking laying it out there and being the last bit, if it's like Captain Marvel, I'll be so mad. So mad. Yeah, I'm really hoping they'll balance that, but it makes me nervous. But some really cool scene, like really cool set pieces in Avengers. Like I really like the fact that like Thanos was respecting Iron Man at the very end of their little battle.
I hope they remember you, Stark.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I think Gamora. All the Guardians of the Galaxy got to come back. So I think Gamora is still alive. I think she's inside the Soul Stone.
Yeah.
So she could come back. You knew the guy who did Red Skull was freaking Ross Marquardt. He's a guy in Walking Dead. He does all the crazy impressions. Have you seen his impressions?
Oh yeah,
he does
I've seen his impressions.
The Harrison Ford impression and stuff he does. That's who did Red Skull.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I knew it wasn't Hugo Weaving, but I didn't know who it was.
Yeah. So I liked a lot of the set pieces in Avengers. I'm a big fan of set pieces. A lot of forgiveness for cool set pieces.
Yeah, the New York battle scene was awesome. I like how they go back to nowhere.
Yeah.
Freaking weird Bianco del Toro's doing his thing.
Benicio del Toro. Yeah, and it's like, you got to give a lot of forgiveness on the gauntlet because like sometimes he's like freaking turning you into ribbons and dust and butterflies, and it's like, well, why don't you do that? Okay. It's impossible to balance that, so I'm like, you get a free pass from me. Usually I'm kind of a stickler for that kind of stuff, but you can't. At this point, the power is just so crazy.
Yeah.
You can't. It's impossible to balance those out. And then one moment that really bugged people was like when when Captain America was holding on to the Infinity Gauntlet at the very end. But I'm like, I like freaking Captain America. I'm fine to give him like a moment. Like Captain America's strength just comes from like his resolve. Like
I know, his heart.
So I was like, I'm fine with him like pausing it for a moment because it's kind of just like, yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah, I just had a thought that I'm a little nervous about the time stuff because anytime you introduce, and we've talked about this, but anytime you introduce time travel, there's no way you can account for all the things you coulda, shoulda, woulda done. Like
correct.
Freaking Doctor Strange has had the time stone this whole time. Just go back in time.
Yeah. So the only thing they try to like carve away all those loose ends by saying there's only one way. So like, look, we could have, but look, it would have been inevitable. It would have ended up and Thanos would have won. So we're telling you there's only one way so that the way we show you is the only possible way. We're not going to explain how the other ways would not have worked, but we're going to sort of tie up those loose ends. Part of it's the whole like Harry Potter time turner thing, which is like you used it to get an A in your homework, but you didn't bother to use it against frickin' Voldemort.
Right.
Like where was that at the very end? Go back and so that doesn't make a lot of sense. So, especially since it was so heavily used in one and not the other ones. But yeah, so that's kind of hard to balance time. So like, yeah, why did you use it there and not there? I mean, Deadpool kind of makes fun of it in Deadpool 2. He just goes back in the epilogue and just fixes everything.
Right.
So you don't, at the end of the movie, you have no idea even what the state of things is. Like, because he goes back and saves his girlfriend, and he throws the butter knife accurately or whatever it is, the freaking spreading knife. And you're like, so wait, she is back? Like, you don't even know where it ends.
I love it. I mean, that's just kind of their middle finger to the trope of a superhero movie.
It's pretty funny. That was well done as well. So, that's good. I think we're going to talk a little bit about following your dreams.
Following your dreams.
Following the dream.
And as of today, you're following your dream.
Yeah, it was really weird. It's one of those things that takes a very long time for it to happen. Like, especially this last week was so drawn out. It was like, my manager was on vacation, his boss was on vacation, I was kind of there. I was like just doing favors for folks. Like, and then most of the time, every time I run into somebody, it turns into an hour and a half conversation about like about me, and then they, you know, I'm like a confessional for people. Like, oh yeah, he's leaving, so I'm gonna unload all my gripes onto him. So I just became like became more or less a psychologist for people's problems with Exxon. But no, it was weird. So I couldn't get anything done if I wanted to, because every single time I went around and talked to somebody, it was like an hour conversation about following your dreams and all this kind of stuff. So I kept having a bunch of these kind of conversations, and then I was fine with that. That's great, you know. I thought it was at least value added for my life.
Right.
And I connected with a lot of people, and so a lot of people had a lot of things they wanted to tell me, and vice versa. But yeah, so this last week, I put in my strict 40 hours. It was the only week in 2 years that I put in 40 hours. But yeah, and then at the very end, like it was yesterday, I had to leave early to go figure out my phone. Because I got a new phone and tried to transfer my number over, blah, blah. But I was leaving, and I was like, holy crap, like this is the last time I leave this office, like in the evening. This is
it.
Yeah. And so I kind of left, and I was like, I'm going to go tomorrow morning, and then my boss is going to come in, and he's going to sign me out, and I'll be done by 10 a.m. So when I was leaving the night before, I was like, this is the last time I'm kind of walking out at kind of a normal time-ish.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, man. And then I come this morning, and it was just like, talk to this person, go over here, boom, boom, boom. And before you know it, I'm like in my boss's office, like signing on the paper. There's your keys. Here's the computer. There's my phone. Walks me out, and you're just like, dang. All right. Well, I'm on the other side of this thing now. And that was the first time kind of driving home. And I made that video kind of as a joke about all the swirling emotions, but like, that was the first time it set on me. Like, again, I should see this coming. I've known about this for a long time, but it's like when you're walking on a high wire and you're like, yeah, I have a plan to remove the safety net. They're going to remove it in 2 weeks. So I got to get used to, but until that safety net is gone, you don't have the same feeling. Like driving home, I was like, holy crap. Like, I'm going to go, I can't waste time. Like I got out like, super early, but I was like, I got to go home and start doing emails. I got to like, clock's ticking. Like that hourglass with your dollars in it is trickling down, and you're not refilling it very fast anymore. And so it's a weird feeling. It's really weird.
Yeah, the closest I think I've ever gotten to that kind of feeling is when I got out. And the out processing process is, weeks. You have to do so much stuff because you sign over your life when you get in the military. But I remember going and turning in my ID, and I'm in uniform. And then, looking at the clinic, the hospital clinic that I worked at for the last time, and then going off the base and being like, all right, I am no longer Captain Thayer. Huh. And just driving home, kind of letting that, I was thrilled.
Right, sure.
Looking forward to getting out of the military. But and I didn't have that sort of hourglass with the dollars in it because I was going to go on to another money-making venture still in my career, so this is a bigger deal for you. But yeah, I think that's the closest I ever got to that type of feeling. Big transition.
It's weird because part of you, like
an identity transition.
Yeah, when you sign up to a big company, there is, yes, I am a provider, for my family, and that is my sole responsibility to provide. And I went and got an education so I could do it, and I'm competing at ExxonMobil so I can, so I can continue to do it, and I'm taking all these different assignments. But there's this agreement that you have with a corporation that you sign over some of your freedom, and that corporation says, I'm going to take that risk or that some of that load off of your shoulders of scrambling for the bone every day. I'm going to make sure the bone is there as long as you do this. And it seems obvious, but I kind of thought about it in a different way today. But then when that wasn't there, I was like, holy crud, I got to scramble for this bone. Like, I got to go find a bone. Like, one's not, they give you one and you got to fight for it, but it's like going to a high fenced ranch, right? Like, the friggin' deer is in there. You just got to go shoot it. There's no high fence anymore. Like, I'm out in the wild. I'm like, I got to go find a deer. Like, like there might not be one. Like, if I go walk, I'm used to walking and finding it every single month. It's automatic. It's hard, and I got to know how to take the shot, and I got to quarter the animal and divide it up and do all this stuff. But it's there. The animal is there. It's provided for me, and I've got to do a bunch of work, and I got to spend a lot of hours in that high fenced ranch, more hours than I want to spend, but it's there. And now I'm like out in the wilderness, and it's like, dude, if I don't start doing this stuff, like if I don't go home and write, if I don't go home and start this podcast, like, it stops. Nothing's going to come. Like, no one's just going to be, there's no check in the mail. It's a weird, it seems obvious, but it was a weird feeling for me. It was like, for me to process the whole, it's not automatic anymore. You've got to come up with ways to go, put food on the table and whatever else. And then I just think of everything now. It's like a switch flipped. I filled up the car in gas, and it was like $44. I was running on fumes, and I was like, $44? How many books is that? And I was just thinking like, geez, yeah, okay. Like, I think of everything in terms of books. Like, I went to Little Caesars. Yeah. Like, if I don't get the stuffed crust, that saves me like 2 books. So, and then it's just like and it's probably, I shouldn't get too worried about it. It's probably good in some respects though, because it keeps me frugal. Yeah, it was a weird mindset change today.
Sometimes it's how I think of it in terms of sessions. Like, how many therapy sessions do I have to conduct in order to pay for this, iPhone? Or, I'll go out to dinner at an expensive restaurant. I'm like, okay, I got to do 2 therapy sessions or 1 therapy session to pay for that dinner. Right.
I don't even want to know how many books I got to sell to pay for my bloody iPhone. I've never had to pay for my own iPhone. For 10 years,
which one did you get?
8 Plus.
Oh, I got the 8 Plus too. There's a new one coming out in a month.
I'm not gonna play Apple's freaking game. I'm gonna go and get a phone. I'm not gonna be
screw you, Apple. I'm not playing your game.
Screw you, $1 trillion company.
I'm gonna show you.
I'm gonna show you by buying your $700 phone. It's ridiculous.
A month before it goes down to $500.
Yeah, like, so my kids go in and like touch the phone. I'm like, don't touch my phone. First off, I have no case on this thing yet. And it's like, don't touch it. I was like, I don't know how this culture where we just like, it's fine to give a kid a $900 computer that's made of glass and have him go run around with it. Like,
right.
No, I'm not going to give you that. What if you freaking drop it?
Here's more computing power than it took to send people to the moon.
Yeah. Then it's fragile and it cost me a fortune. Like, just because everyone, I don't know. Yeah, so it's a sweet phone. Like, one of the reasons why I got the 8 Plus and not like tried to do some super cheap deal like with Straight Talk from Walmart and buy like a refurbed iPhone 6 was the camera is so much better that I can do a lot of my videos. I don't have to take my freaking DSLR out. I can just record off my phone and it's like awesome quality. I'm just like, upload it, let's go.
The camera is awesome. The portrait mode photos that you can take.
It's crazy.
So cool.
So awesome. It's crazy. I always heard there's Apple, there's Samsung, and then there's like another company in China. They're the 3 biggest phone manufacturers. And the one in China, we won't allow their phones here because we say it's some like security risk. But the big conspiracy theory is that like all the American companies, America's locked it down because we don't want them to freaking torpedo Apple and Samsung because these phones are apparently like twice as good as an iPhone. Like 40 megapixel cameras. And
they just overtook Apple, I think.
Did they?
As the second largest manufacturer.
Yeah, so we're just like, yeah, no, we don't want it. But as if the Apple iPhone wasn't made in China anyway. So, I don't know, it's weird. But, Yeah, so the whole following dreams thing, like I've thought a couple people have sent me quotes, and a lot of them have to do around with, there's no amount of security that, you should get that comes at the expense of following your dream or doing what you're passionate about. And I was like, a lot of those quotes are awesome and they're empowering and they're like just right in my headspace. But I don't regret any of the last 10 years.
Right.
I would have played them the same way. I don't believe, and I've been critical in my life of people that are like, I'm going to follow the dream. And then like, you're dragging your kids along and you're having to eat ramen noodles and you're in debt your whole life. But on the other hand, it's like you get to the end of your life and if you pursued your dream and you end life with a bit of debt, like, is that a failure? I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably not. So I don't know where I land on that. Part of it's like, if you're a burden on society because you're trying to follow your dream, that's probably where I would draw the line. Now, how you define that, I'm not quite sure, but
yeah, I think it also has something to do with what does it mean to live a meaningful life?
Yeah, because you're never happy.
Right.
Like, you're never, even the people, like, I was listening to Joe Rogan talk to Chris Stapleton. So we went to a Chris Stapleton concert last night. I'd heard like 2 of his songs before in my entire life. So Joe's like, listen to Joe Rogan, Chris Stapleton conversation. I was like, all right, I can do that. That'll pump me up for the thing. He's just super soft-spoken dude. And he's been writing songs since he was like early 20s. He's written like 1,000 country songs. And that used to pay his bills writing songs. And then he would go play bluegrass. And he'd just play. And then in his late 30s, he got super huge. I don't know how that guy didn't just write songs for himself because his voice is incredible.
Yeah.
He's awesome. And his songs are legit. He's really good. But he just talks about, he's like, yeah, it's always been about just the music. And I'm glad people like it. And I'm not going to compromise myself. I'm not going to like, some slick-haired Hollywood dude or agent or record guy. He's like, no, I just do my own thing. And if people like it, great. If they don't, that's fine too. I'm glad they're liking it. He's like, I'm the luckiest man in the world. But then he just talked about like, there's times where it feels like a little bit of work, but he's doing exactly what he loves every single day. And I'm sure there's times where he's not happy still. So then it's like, exactly, what does it mean to live a fulfilled life? So there's a couple examples. I keep this mental list. I should actually keep a physical list, but I keep this mental list of people who, at least ostensibly, I look at, and they seem like people who are doing exactly what they want to do with no compromises and kind of living the life. Like Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Stapleton, Joe Rogan. Like talking to people for a living. Joe Rogan gets to be Joe. He gets to go to his comedy.
He is his brand.
Yeah. He's just like, I'm going to be me, and I get paid millions of dollars for being me. Like,
and he works hard too. Like he works hard at his comedy. He's passionate about that, and he writes. He's diligent. He goes on the road, and he goes up and does a lot of. He works his material on stage, and then he works hard for the UFC. But he has an expertise. He can just kind of show up and commentate. It's not like he has to do a ton of homework, I would think.
But I mean, again, like I'm going to put in just as many hours, if not more hours, doing my thing than I did at Exxon. But to me, a fulfilled life is I'm doing, like if I work at Exxon, it's like, what would you be doing if you didn't work here? Oh, I would be doing this. But if someone asks you that question, like, what would you be doing if you didn't do this? And if your answer is, I'd be doing this, then I think you found something. You're on the right spot as far as like being a fulfilled life. Like, I wouldn't want to do anything else. This is exactly what I want to be doing. I'm getting up and it's like, what would you want to do? I would want to write. If I had no external pressures, then I'd be doing exactly what I'd be doing. Like that's where you're hitting the sweet spot, which is kind of my experiment the next year. Like I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to do all these things, I'm going to write. I'm going to talk to people in podcast. I'm going to write blog posts. I'm going to do videos. Like this is what I'm built for. This is just like who Mike Thayer is.
What you want to do. Yeah. What
I do and what I kind of think I'm good at. And we'll see if it goes anywhere. But like, I kind of want to put that to the test because there's all those flipping, truisms and whatever else where people like follow your dreams. And as I said, no amount of signing yourself to some corporate thing or not, no amount of working someone else's passion makes up for you avoiding, not doing yours, blah, blah, all this stuff. It's like, okay, well, let's see if that's true. Like everyone says that. It's on a lot of memes and a lot of freaking Hallmark cards, but like, and it feels right. Well, okay, let's go test it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and I think mixed in there is some just, you have to consider the practical wisdom of your endeavor. I'm thinking, Gary V would probably encourage you to do this thing, to encourage you to do what you're doing, but he'd also be like, is it actually going to make you any money? Do you have a plan for how you could do this for a living and make it sustainable? Like, don't just fall. If your dream is to freaking do sidewalk art and you kind of suck at sidewalk art, then you probably shouldn't follow your dream. I don't know.
Maybe but no, I think you're right. I mean, a lot of respects. Part of me, if I pull this off, I'm going to obviously write a book and kind of about what I did, my experience, and a lot of it kind of swarms around this whole like be your own Count of Monte Cristo. Because in some respects, we're all in Chateau Dif, right? Like my right brain has been in Chateau Dif for a very long time.
Such a good movie, man. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's another awesome movie. I don't know I'll have to look at the Rotten Tomatoes on that one, but yeah. So like every night I come home. I mean, I talked to you about this analogy, but my analogy was I'm in Chateau Dif. My desktop background at work is Chateau Dif, and everyone it's a nice picture of Chateau Dif, and people know I'm like a fantasy nerd. So like, oh, it's like a castle. I'm like, yeah,
something like that.
Chateau Dif, but and every night I come home and you're tunneling somewhere. You don't know whether you're tunneling to freedom, or you're going to tunnel into some guy's next room, or you're tunneling into the guard shack, or you're tunneling out into the abyss, but you're tunneling. And if you don't, then you took your whippings for nothing.
Right.
So it's like, yes, when you take hard whippings, you come home and you convince yourself, I just deserve sleep, I deserve rest, I'm going to unwind. Yeah, to be honest, you're probably right. But you're not ever going to escape Chateau Dif. Like, I've never worked more hours in my life than these last 2 years, and I published the whole book. I mean, I didn't start writing the Passes to Avalon until I moved to Billings.
Until what?
Until I moved to Billings. The whole thing was conceived, written, published during the 2 busiest years of my life. And I wrote more in the evenings in Billings than I probably did in Australia. Because the freaking lickings were harder. The beatings were intense. And so every single night I came home, I'm like, I did not take that in vain. No way. I'm going to make sure that I do something with this night. And I would plow through it, and I kind of burnt myself out a little bit, but it got me a book. And I pushed myself pretty hard.
And that's why I think you're the kind of person, whether or not you'll succeed, time will tell, but you're the kind of person. What success is going to be. Yeah, you're the kind of person that finds that success, though, or creates it. Maybe that's a better metaphor, because you had a full-time job, a demanding, soul-sucking full-time job, and you still managed to do the thing that you wanted to do, right? To do your passion, to do your purpose, this thing that you want to get up every morning and do. You still did it. And so, I mean, it stands to reason that if you remove the roadblock of the job, that it's not like you're going to be like, oh, good, now I can play video games and, eat popcorn.
Yeah, it's funny, too, because I'll look at, sometimes I'll be at like a symposium, or I'll watch something online, or I'll read something, and it'll talk about like, steps to success in self-publishing or in being an author. And someone will be like, you got to be focused, you got to eliminate distractions, you got to like set boundaries and all this stuff. And I'm just like, dude, I am so far beyond. Like, this is the obstacles I got to overcome. Like, now I have the problem of I didn't grow up reading 1,000 books, and I haven't been writing books since I was 12. So
yeah, you've got your
my issues are somewhere else. And I am very self-aware of what those are. But again, like, going back to like things that Gary Vee said, is like triple down on your strengths. Like, no one pays you for not having weaknesses. People pay you for your strength. So yeah, I know where my weaknesses are, and I'll do my best to kind of shore them up on my spare time. But to be honest, I'm way more focused on tripling down on my strengths than I am on shoring up my weaknesses.
Yeah.
I'll hone the craft, but like, I can get up in front of a group of kids and give a presentation better than just about anybody I know. Like, short of a clown, I'm probably going to have those kids, as educated, inspired, and entertained as a human being can do. And I'm like 100% confident in that. Like, a lot of that was built into what I did at Exxon. I took a bit of my own flair on that. I could put together a mean PowerPoint presentation and give a mean PowerPoint presentation. I have like 100% confidence in that. Now, is my book going to be as good as some of the other authors? Maybe not. But like, That's only a part of what I'm selling. That's the product, and it's sort of, that's with the focus, but like, it's not New York Times best author, it's New York Times best seller. And I'm not peddling crap. I'm not peddling things, things that people don't need. I'm peddling a product that I believe in, because I couldn't get out there and speak with the passion I do unless I believed in the product.
Sure.
But yeah, so I am way like, get me in front of kids, get me in front of teachers, get me in front of librarians, get me at the Renaissance Fair, because I can sell like a mean selling machine, and it's just part of who I am.
Yeah, so you just have to bring the weaknesses up to good enough instead of, they don't have to be great. They just have to be good enough.
I will never write like a Patrick Rothfuss. That's why I think, to be honest, I think middle grade fits me a lot. Because I'm not saying middle grade authors are not as good as like adult fantasy authors, but there's a different style. There's a different, I don't know, depth that you have to go into with your prose and everything, that I'm just like, I can't, it's not there. I could get there, but I don't really care to. It'd be cool. Right. I want to. I mean, sometimes I'll read a book, like when I read Blood Song, I was like, oh, dude. Yeah, this guy writes so well. I was like, I'll never be able to spin a line like this guy. But in middle grade, you don't really have to, right? And in middle grade, I think it plays to some of my strengths. Like, I think my banter, I'll put my banter up against anybody's. Like, someone might have like a more realistic, gritty, raw conversation than I will. But as far as like joking back and forth, look, call me prideful or whatever, but I haven't read a book. The Lies of Locke Lamora, that guy can friggin' write banter. Scott Lynch. Scott Lynch is legit. Yeah, every once in a while you'll come across someone's like, yeah, that guy's legitimately better than me. I've got no qualm saying that. But for the most part, like even big time authors, I'm like, I can make a funnier conversation than that.
I think Joe Abercrombie's really good at that, actually.
Oh, he is. Yeah, Joe Abercrombie's really good too. There's some guys that are really good, super sharp. But a lot of other times I'm into this book and I'm liking it, but sometimes I'll step back and I'll like look at a conversation objectively and I'm like, yeah, that wasn't funny. Like, I know it's supposed to be funny, so I'm kind of going with it, and I like the book, and it's got an awesome magic system, but like, yeah, that banter's kind of garbage. So that's why I'm like, look, I'm going to play up to my banter. Or like, I think my plots are first rate. My ability to problem solve, I would say, is better than my peers, because I'm an engineer. And
right.
And that's what I've done for 10 years, is solve super complex problems. So I think, and not like mathematical problems. It's like problems where you have to laterally think and pool resources together. And it's just like pooling resources together in a story and plot lines and whatever else. I will purposely paint myself into a corner just so I can problem solve my way out of it. And as long as I use what's available to me, then that solution is going to be awesome. Now, if you Deus Ex Machina it, then people dismiss you, and they rightfully should. But I'm supremely confident in my ability to solve a problem. And so I don't really, the whole like writer's block or how do I get out of the situation, not really an issue. Like I will figure a way out of it. It might be hard. I might spin my wheels for longer than I want to, but I know I can come up with a solution. That's the fun part of writing to me, is the problem solving, which is probably a different way to look at writing, but that's an engineer's way of looking at writing.
Yeah, but it creates an interesting story.
Yeah, because I think, especially because I'm uber strict about using the tools available.
Yeah.
I have no interest in pulling an Indiana Jones 4. The answer is going to be something more clever than aliens. Like that's not setting yourself a very particularly high bar, Indiana Jones 4. But yeah, I think part of the whole follow your dream is if you get a skill. Kind of what I was thinking before about Chateau Dif thing is like become your own Count of Monte Cristo. But I think a lot of that has to do with getting a skill that society actually wants and values is step number one.
Yeah, because I mean, you want to do something that scratches, and because that will sustain your energy. But if you can find other people who have the same itch, you're set. It's like Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans.
Right.
That Tim Ferriss always talks about. You find the people who like your stuff because they think the way that you do, or they like the same things that you do, or they enjoy the internally consistent problem solving that you can provide. and you get a couple of people who are your mavens. They like your nexus. They tell everybody about everybody that they know that's similar to them, and before you know it, you've got a core fan base.
I think too. I'm trying to take an approach that's different than any other author that I see out there with a lot of like my stuff I do online. So even like super engaging guys that do like great school presentations and stuff, go look at their Facebook and Instagram. It's not all that entertaining, right? Like every single thing I put on Facebook and Instagram, now I don't put a lot, I'm going to put a lot more, I try to make funny. And I honestly think it's legitimately funny. Like it's got at least one funny, even if it's a picture of my kid or whatever, I'll try to do some funny tag or whatever else. It's not just like, hey, here's my kid. Like I try to make sure if you're on my feed, I don't try to make it political. I just try to make like this guy is entertaining. Mike Thayer's going to post something. It's going to be an attempt at humor. Right. So I'll keep him around even though it's like, I might not really be all that into his books, but at least he's an entertaining guy. Mm-hmm. Or hopefully that keeps people coming back for more. And then, because that's the thing, it's like, I feel like if I just keep peppering people with like, Passage to Avalon's on sale, do another review, don't forget to leave a review. Like, I just feel like I'm pestering people, but I'm like, look, I'm giving you free entertainment. Yeah. With videos and comments and whatever else. Like, hopefully that should be some payment for like, okay, I'm going to pester you every once in a while with... now a new release of my book, I don't think is pestering you because that's like should be a mutually beneficial thing for you to get my book and me to receive your money. But me pestering you to leave a review or to vote for me for this award, that can be taxing, I guess. But I'm giving you a lot, man. I'm giving you some funny stuff, and you got to provide value. I'm brightening up your day. I don't see any authors doing that. Now I'm sure they're out there, but like I'm going through Rick Riordan, That's the Percy Jackson. Jackson guy. You don't get any bigger than him other than J.K. Rowling. You just don't. And I mean, he's offering something. He's offering courses and whatever else. Like that's fine. But like, I don't see anyone doing this. So maybe they're not doing it because it doesn't work, or maybe they're not doing it because that's not their strength. But that's where I can separate myself. So part of it's like I just have to provide enough consistent content that people are like, going to start talking like, man, this guy like every day has got something funny. Every week he's got a rant that's funny, something. Yeah. Those rants are legit, man. You can go back through, and I practice them a lot. You don't just sit down and be able to run that because the problem is you have to make it exactly a minute. Exactly what? 1 minute. Because Instagram. You're cutting out every once in a while. Sorry, you were too, a little bit back there. You're like, it cut out when you're like, if it doesn't scratch and then it went blank for a couple seconds. So it's gonna sound to people that I muted it out, but I didn't. So you got to get them in a minute because with Instagram, you can't go over a minute. Now you could have a minute and then swipe right, and there's the other, like Hamish and Andy will do that if they have like a 4-minute video. You keep swiping for another minute segment, but I try to get it in under a minute, and if I do it like in 45 seconds, then I think I'm leaving something on the table. Yeah, they have the IGTV now, though. Longer form videos. Do they? Mm-hmm. Well, I'll be... If you look at the top of the app, they'll have, like, IGTV stuff where you can go and you can watch, Gary Vee do a long, like, 4-minute video or whatever. I gotta look into that. Yeah, because I'm trying to... So sometimes I'll run the rant, and it'll be, like, a minute 2. I'll be like, ah! I'm like, dadgummit, I've got everything in there. I didn't screw up, and I made it 2 seconds too long. So I was like, I either got to speak faster, which is hard to do without screwing up, or cut something out. And so I'll do like 30 takes on a rant. Some of the takes are 2 seconds long, but I do quite a few takes to get them down. But by the end, work in, man. Well, I think it's important. And then you refine an idea, and I can pull up, even though I don't have them all still memorized, I could talk about, ambulance being spelled backwards on an ambulance, and at least have some funny things to say because I'll start pulling them from my memory. Or, raisins and oatmeal cookies. But if you go, Well, I think that's what makes for good comedy too, is you have a premise and then you work the premise until you've come up with the how do I say this in the fewest words possible? Right. Parsimony is important in comedy too. Parsimony? Easy there, Mr. Thesaurus. Which
I
one?
do have a PhD.
That's good. I don't even know if I know what parsimony means.
You don't know what parsimony means?
No. Is he like the knight that got the Holy Grail? It's Parzival.
Like
Parzival. Oh, okay.
Parzival.
Yeah.
You're talking about Ready Player One? Parzival?
Parzival. Yeah.
No, to parse something out, like to make it to be brief, to be terse, to have an idea and say it in as few words as necessary.
Parsimony. You know what word I hate? And it has nothing to do with parsimony. I just popped in my head. Nonplussed. The dumbest word in the dictionary. Yeah. Nonplussed. It's one word. There's no dash in there. It's nonplussed. And you never hear of plussed. You just hear of nonplussed.
Right. You can't be plussed, but you can be nonplussed.
Nonplussed.
And it just means like not perturbed or whatever.
Yeah. No, like not unfazed.
Not unfazed, unbothered.
Nonplussed. I hate that word. There's a couple. I gotta write them down because there's a couple words I just hate. Nonplussed is way up there. I hate granularity. I won't say it. So it's like
there's a lot of those
term.
business buzzwords that businesses will latch onto. Leverage.
Like, you mean detail? It didn't have enough detail. Why did you have to throw granularity? You just want more syllables?
I want to see the individual grains.
Granularity. And then they'll use like two, like the granularity and the minutia. Oh, I'm glad you said minutia and granularity.
We got them both.
Because I thought we were just going to talk about granularity, but I'm glad we're getting down to both the granularity and then also the minutia. Another stupid word.
When somebody tries to use a big word, but they don't use it right, or it's not actually the word. Like in the military, when I was in the military, a lot of guys would use exacerbate, but they would say exacerbate.
That's a good one.
I don't want to exacerbate this situation, but
I told you I had a boss that said anomaly.
What?
For a mix between an anomaly and an abnormality.
What was the word?
Anomaly.
Anomaly.
It sounds like it's a word, but it's not a word.
Sound like it.
It's not.
I don't like the word utilize.
Instead of just saying use, to use?
Yeah, there's no, as far as I know, I'm sure somebody would probably correct me on this, but there's no situation where you would want to use utilize where you couldn't just use use.
Right.
And people will say utilize to like sound smarter, and I don't know. It's not parsimonious. It's a long word when you could use a shorter word.
Always use a shorter word.
I guess there are probably shorter words than parsimonious, huh? Like terse.
That's in and of itself kind of ironic to use that word at all.
Yeah. I remember one time in graduate school, I was in a class and we were talking about formatting for like a bibliography or whatever. And they were talking about something and I said, now is that paginated by issue or by volume? And they answered the question like, oh yeah, very good, very good. And then my buddy raises his hand. He's like, is anybody going to address the gratuitous use of the word paginated?
Paginated. Like to page something, like to page it out?
Yeah.
Wow, that is rough.
Yep.
Me and my one buddy at work, we were talking about how we need to be able to involve more furniture as verbs.
What?
Because like, let's couch this or let's table this.
Oh yeah.
Can we table this? Can we couch this? I was like, what?
Can we end table this?
Yeah. What more? So we was like, what would it mean to ottoman something? Like you want to use it to like put it close enough to you. Like we try to get like make definitions that you actually would use it in a, or like let's armoire this, kind of put it away a little bit, but make sure it's put away neatly.
Right. Let's hall tree this. That's like something you could hang coat. That's like what you hang coats on, right? So
what's another
an idea you can hang other ideas on. Hold other ideas. I don't know.
Some of it's just so. But I didn't like. again, like I didn't run into this at all at school. It's just a whole work thing. I don't know why someone thought it's valuable to start including furniture into the conversation, but to couch something is like to give it context, to like couch it. And I don't know why that's a verb. Like, did you couch that? Can we couch this differently? We couch it?
Maybe it goes back to what the word couch like originally meant.
Actually means?
Maybe, so like the sofa, we call it a couch because it like, I don't know.
Like embraces you in a way. Maybe you're right.
Go down my furniture etymology.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean that's, you know, kind of going back to the whole wrapping up the whole dream thing is number one, it feels weird and I'm taking a big risk. But number two, I tell people, like, I've already felt the burden lift. Now some of that burden, some of that weight on my shoulders was bags of money. It's just floated away. Oh crap, I wanted that part. And trying to like get that one back. But if I can pull this off, I don't know, I just convinced myself that life, I somehow didn't deserve that. I didn't deserve to do this full time or to be that fulfilled with my day job. I just convinced myself, no, your day job is a certain level of dissatisfaction, and that's how it is, because that's how it is with everybody around here, and you just get used to an idea, and you don't really challenge that idea. I don't know, I just got enough things in my life. Somehow I never gave up the book thing. I don't know why I never gave it up. Like I should have given it up years ago. I mean, like I think back to the days in Australia where I was like, you know, contacting agents and doing all this stuff and posting things on Reddit to get torn to shreds and then giving it to I paid a flipping editor to look through the book that I never even published. You know? Right. It's like I did all this and I was like, oh, I'm so glad that Mike in 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15 didn't know how far away from the goal he was, because he would have stopped, right? And I've heard a lot of other authors. I heard James Dasher say that. He's like, if I would have known how much work it was going to take to get here, I wouldn't have done it. He's like, I'm glad I did. I'm so glad that I did, but I definitely wouldn't have done it. Because you're always just thinking, oh, this will be the big break. Oh, this will, you know, and it just piecemeals you along a little bit. And then you get going further than probably you would if it would have been like, Mike, sit down and start writing, and then you're not going to come up with your first book until 10 years. And then even then it's going to be self-published, and it's going to be like you have to drive the whole thing yourself. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
No, thanks. I'll go do something else. But then again, I'm super glad that I did it. But yeah, I just sort of convinced myself that you aren't allowed to have that level of fulfillment in your day job. But like, man, if I pull this off, like, as I said, I make the joke, but like I'm gonna wake up laughing. Like, yes, eventually, I'm sure one day I'll look back, I'll take it for granted, and it will still feel like work because I'm pumping out. But like, sort of, like, I've already lived enough life and had enough rough jobs and long hours that like, I will. I mean, maybe interview me in 10 years and see if I say the same thing, but I don't feel like I'll ever take it for granted. The honeymoon phase might wear off, but like. I mean, I know what it's like to try to start up a refinery in the winter in Montana, and I don't really think I'm going to forget that.
Yeah.
Like, what a cool thing it would be to make this work. And then part of me says, like, it's going to work. You just need to, like, how deep are you willing to be cut financially to make this work?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Part of me says it's impossible. Then another part of me says, well, it's totally possible. Why isn't it? Why wouldn't it be possible?
It's got to be possible because there are other people that are doing it. So it's humanly possible, and there are people who don't have your resources, don't have your talents, don't have your ideas that are doing it, and Correct. They're doing fine.
And I mean, I'm sure we've had this conversation before where I was like, you look at the people who are famous, whether they be actors or whoever else, you're like, why that's who we could produce? And it's like, part of it is because that was probably, I mean, part of it's luck, and I'm sure there's other things behind the scenes, but like a lot of it is the only people we're seeing are the people who are willing to give their life up for that thing. So people who would have been super talented at whatever, an actor or singer, were probably like, I'm way too risk averse to do that. I'm not going to go live in Hollywood and, you know, schlep for 10 years until I'm finally in the right place at the right time to get lucky and get taken up because they'll have the talent. So they just go do something that's less rich. So like, I remember having this conversation with you about like, I'm just not willing to put my kid's livelihood on the line to go do this. And so I'm probably never going to take the risk. And I said, I'm never going to have a big payoff because I'm never going to be able to focus on it full time.
Right.
And then enough things happen financially and emotionally with dad passing and then with the job and the time it required and my unhappiness there. And then too, just the realization is like, this was an interesting, again, it's like you could come up with an argument to stay in your job or you could come up with an argument to leave your job. One of them to leave was like, someone told me at work, like, Mike, if I was one of your kids, I wouldn't want to live knowing that like I was the thing that held dad back from pursuing is like what would make him truly fulfilled and happy from a professional standpoint. Like I wouldn't want that. Go for it. Like your kids will survive. Problem is you take that too far and it's like, oh yeah, it'll be fine. I'm going to go do my thing. I'm going to, try to.
Yeah, but you're not going to do that. That's the thing. Like it's not like you're going to lose your house and, your kids all of a sudden can't have anything that they want. And, you are doing the ramen noodle thing because, dad's he's following his dream. I guess we have to, wire our shoes back together with baling wire.
But a 9-wire, put that sneaker back together. Yeah, I think you're right. I think and I've set myself up financially to like, I have a decent runway. Now I have the runway of my checking account, and I'm hoping that's the only runway I need. But if I was like, if we get through that, and I'm like a year and a half into this, and I'm like, I just need more time. Like, I got other things I can dip into. I got 401k. I've got other investments, and I'm just like, if I really wanted to, like, I talk about that in my one video. That's like, I could move back and live with flipping mom or Jane.
Right.
If I really wanted to, then I can extend my runway indefinitely, and I know I'm going to take off eventually. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, that's where we're like, when I got behind that idea of like, look, if I'm dead set on this thing, and I kind of bet all chips on Mike, like, I'm going to make this happen. I'll move, I'll do whatever. And then, that'll be hard on them, but not that bad. There's worse things in the world than moving back to Provo. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, certainly.
Be around family and everything else. And I was like, I know I'm going to, because I'll work it hard. There's going to be in my life, now at work, it's been a bit different. Well, I don't know. I was going to say very few people have outworked me. And I know people kind of wear that as a badge of honor, like, oh, I spend more hours in the office. But like, now people have put more hours in the office at Exxon than I have. Not a lot. But there's plenty.
Right.
But they also didn't go home and write a book. So I was like, oh, you put in 10 more hours a week than I did this week? Oh, sweet. Yeah, I wrote a book. That didn't just spring into being, right? So like when you look at like utilizing my time, from either being at work or working on my thing, like, I don't know, there's few individuals that are just willing to do that. So I'm like, if I dedicate myself full time to this, I'm like, I'm not really seeing myself losing. Now, what level of success I get to, I don't know. Maybe I'll cap out at something and it's not going to be a multimillionaire, but I'll make 6 figures and that's what I got to do.
And you can live on that.
I can live on that. That'd be great. But like, I don't want to be naive, but I don't see myself failing. I don't see it like just crashing and burning. And
well, and even if it did, you have a contingency plan. It's not like you're putting all your chips on that number. I was gonna say basket. I'm mixing metaphors here. All your eggs in that basket. It's not like you're betting. Like you're betting all your eggs.
Putting all my eggs on black.
It's not like boil all them chips.
No, you're right, and that's why I'm like, when a lot of these realizations kind of dawn on me, I'm like, life is sunnier. Like, this is feeling good. Like, I feel good about what I'm doing. It is a relief. There's going to be certain stresses, obviously. When I look at some of my friends that are like still on an expat assignment, I'm like, yeah, expat money is really, really good. Like, we talk about golden handcuffs. The prospect of going on an expat assignment, man.
Yeah.
So I don't have this written down, but I don't have this written down in front of me. It's written down somewhere. I have like a billion notes, then I have stuff on my blog that's in draft form. But it was like, you can measure, I know it's probably somewhere on my desk. I don't want to wrestle around with it. Maybe I'll, let's see if it's just right here. If it's not, I won't worry about it. It's not there. You can measure sort of someone's commitment or who they are by a couple of things, like how hard they work, what they sacrifice to do that thing, and then what they give up as an alternate. So I work really hard. I sacrifice, and I think sacrificing something is different than the alternate thing. Like, well, maybe it's the same. I had it separated differently in my head before, but like for me it was, I'm leaving $10 million on the table. That was my sacrifice. I calculated it out. My kind of an average, if it was conservative too, it was probably low. What I was going to earn over the next 20 years, 25-ish, what my pension was going to be, money in my 401k, blah, blah, blah. And that's if I didn't go on an expat assignment.
Right.
I'm leaving $10 million on the table, guaranteed $10 million. That's what I sacrifice. But what do I give up that I could do otherwise?
Mm-hmm.
That also is a mark of kind of like who you are, right or wrong, right? So when I'm staying at my work, the thing I could do otherwise is my opportunity cost is ginormous because I know exactly what I want to do. I know what my passion is. And so, yeah, that tells something about me. Like if that was the only way to support my family and I needed to give my passion, that's like, yeah, that's a very noble thing for you to do, Mike. But I've set myself up where I don't need to do that. And so I gave up the day job, and that's, I guess, that $10 million is what I'm sacrificing. But I could be doing all other sorts of things on a daily basis, right? Things that I really like or things that I really want to do, but I don't. And that says something about me. Right. How bad do you, like, some people just don't like enough stuff. Like me, I'm cursed by too many passions, too many hobbies. Mm-hmm. And so I think that says something about me if I am not distracted by those things, because I'm giving up things that I could get super into and that I really would like to do. Right. And so part of that is I have to prove to myself, I actually consciously think about this, like I have to prove that I'm actually as noble and dedicated as I think I am. Yeah. Like, and so I things that I really, really would like to do, but I give up. I'm just used to giving up one side of that, like the dream side of it, and follow the more rigorous, I'm kind of unhappy side. Mm-hmm. Like that says something about me, that I'm willing to bear that burden and march forward, and it does. But then I was like, well,
there's nobility in that too.
For sure there is, yeah. And I wore that nobility proudly, I think, and I was going to wear it to the end of the day. You know, it really was, Dad. It really was, Dad. It just changed everything. Changed my whole outlook. It's like I had my midlife crisis 15 years early. Mm-hmm. I was just like, he was healthy as a horse and had 3 independent forms of cancer. I could get one of those next year. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, you don't know how long life's going to be. And that can sound kind of cliche, but you only get one, and you don't know how long it's going to be. So why not do it doing something that you think is important? Not only that you enjoy, but something that you think is significant.
Correct. And I can convince myself that oil and gas is significant. And I think it is on a whole. You could plant as many trees as you want to, but we are bringing 1 billion people out of poverty through, LNG or fracking or whatever else. Like that makes a difference. But you're such a small cog in such a humongous wheel. And the thing that burdened me all the time was I was like, anybody could do this job. And I just don't feel like, and again, maybe this is just me being vain, I just don't feel like I was put on this earth to do a job that other people could do.
Yeah.
Some people might. Some people might not have an issue. It's like, I'm glad I can add value and I can provide for my family, and that's why I'm here. And that's part of why I'm here. But I'm just like, I don't know. I think I just got a unique way of approaching things. And it's not just mom that's told me this my whole life. It's everybody that I've ever met that's told me this. Yeah, it's different, Mike. I was like, yeah, I kind of am.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, other people can write books. Other people can do podcasts and blogs and rant videos, but no one can write your book.
Correct.
No one can do your podcast. And, you know, not everybody is a special snowflake that should be paid millions of dollars for just being their true self. But if your uniqueness, like we were talking about before, is liked by others, if it's entertaining, if it adds value to people's life in one way or another, whether it's entertainment or information or inspiration, then you have an obligation.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a point that I forgot about that I wanted to make. So I think if you are able to do things that the vast majority of humanity cannot, I think you have an obligation, a bit of an obligation to humanity to do those things. And I came across this video. I think I just sent it to James, but it was this guy playing a guitar, and then James sent me another video of a guy that does it even better. But this guy playing a guitar that, like, you know, it sounds like there's like 7 instruments. So he's tapping on the guitar, he's scratching it with his fingernails, he's like drumming it like crazy, then he's plucking down below, he's plucking up top independently of the plucking down below. And then this guy, as he's playing, he's tuning the strings in and out to get different sounds. So he's like, boom, and he brings it back. Like,
what in the world?
It's nuts what this guy does, right? And then James sent me this other one. This guy's just flying. Like, it's impossible. Like, if I practiced 1,000 years, I couldn't do what these guys do.
Right.
The reason why I think it's important for people to, with that kind of talent, to share it with the world, other than it's cool and it's music and it's, you know, I can enjoy it even if I didn't know it was one guy. If you can do something that other people think is impossible, I think that is very, very important, because it shows me that I shouldn't put up as many barriers as I do.
Yeah.
Even if it's like, okay, I didn't have a specific barrier on what's possible on the guitar. That wasn't holding me back in life. But I have barriers set up, and I have like limits, and it could be, you know, anything, like things that I can accomplish. It could be I put a barrier on the usefulness of an opposing political opinion. Like, look, I've got to figure out what that guy is explaining. It's useless. It has no value. I'm building all these barriers all the time. And then I come up to someone and I was like, yeah, it's impossible. And it's like, what? Okay, well, maybe I need to
Right.
And then it kind of shakes all of your assumptions a little bit. Because like, how solid are all of my assumptions? Because this guy showed me something that I just didn't think was possible. Like that 10-year-old kid that juggles 3 Rubik's Cubes and solves the Rubik's Cubes as he's juggling them. And he does it in like 5 minutes.
I can't even solve a Rubik's Cube.
That should be impossible.
Right.
That does not to catch it, to recognize how you catch it, to know how you need to twist it, and then to do that at that speed, and to do it when you're 10.
Right.
I feel like there's some Rubik's Cube grandmaster who still has his coordination, and he's 95, and he's been doing this for 80 years. Still, I would say it's impossible. But a 10-year-old? Like, boom. Now it's just like, that kid's got an obligation. I mean, he probably has no life, and he might be very unhappy. Like, human beings are capable of crazy things when they dedicate themselves to one thing their entire lives. Like, I don't want that life. I don't want that life for my kids, but like, holy crap. Like, we can do some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff that I didn't think was possible. So now I'm like, now I got to kind of, I want to work on my thing, and I want to get to that level. That's beyond the whole 10,000 hours thing.
Sure.
Right? That's the next phase. That's like savant stuff. And I think it's important. I think it's important to share. If you have a unique skill, if you can create something uniquely your own or do something in a way that is unprecedented, like, you kind of have an obligation to humanity. And I think it uplifts them, as I said, not just in guitar playing ways or Rubik's Cube ways. I didn't have any specific barriers, again, on Rubik's Cubes holding me back in life. But when I see a kid do that with Rubik's Cubes, I'm like, frick, man, anything's possible. We can land a man on Mars now. If a kid can do flipping 3 Rubik's Cubes, we should be,
It's a paradigm shift.
It's crazy. And I think it's really important. And again, when I watch Logan, it's not just something that resonates with me. It's like inspires me. I want to have that effect on other people. I want to have someone look at me and go, geez, man, that is possible. Like for a year, I don't see a lot. I mean, there are people out there, plenty of people that jump ship and follow their dream, but like I don't run into a lot of them. And I was like, I'll be that guy for 500 people that see me on Facebook for the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Again, I repeat what I said in my video. Even if you don't like my dream, even if you don't share that thing, so I'm juggling Rubik's Cubes, you don't care about Rubik's Cubes, at least appreciate that I'm doing something that's paradigm shifting.
Right.
You can appreciate the fact that it shifts paradigms, even if you don't even like Rubik's Cubes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would hope is like, I don't care if buy my novel, I want you to, but you don't appreciate me for something else. Live vicariously just through a guy who's following his dream.
Right.
And then I think that's infectious because it's, the bad side of it is, you get in a work environment where you normalize deviation, like work hours and whatever else. But again, I go back to this whole surround yourself with awesomeness. If you surround yourself in something, it's easier to do that thing. When I first hired on Exxon, it was like, yeah, everyone goes and lives overseas. It's like, what? Yeah, it's just totally normal. Yeah, I've been to Indonesia twice. I lived in Russia once. And then at first it was so foreign. I didn't think we'd ever be able to do it. And after like 3 or 4 years, you're just like, yeah, when am I going?
Yeah.
And then you go and your family's freaking out. Not your immediate family, but like brothers and sisters. And you guys like, Jane, my mother-in-law, is like, this is so crazy. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's totally normal.
Right.
And you're like, no, it is crazy, actually. It's full on crazy. But you can do that for good. So, you can do that. You can surround yourself with just super passionate people. That's what Joe Rogan talks about. Just surround yourself with positive, passionate people. And you just create good stuff.
Yeah, I've heard Tim Ferriss say it. I'm sure it didn't originate with him, but you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah, that's interesting. So for a writer, that might be kind of weird because a lot of it's isolated, but
yeah. So you're the average of.
You better pick. You better be very selective on who you pick then, because
your 3 kids, your wife, and your dog.
Yeah. I'm not gonna have that problem though. I'm gonna do podcasting or whatever else, but yeah, no, I think that's totally right. Like when in college, I would just surround myself with smartest people I could find, and cool people. I wanted people that I got along with, but like study with the smart kids. You want to be smart. It's not like rocket science,
right? No, it makes all the sense in the world.
Unless you're trying to learn rocket science, then surround yourself with the smart rocket scientists.
Hang out with the rocket scientists. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you start to absorb that, and again, that could be for ill or for good, depending on what you're doing. But yeah, and another big thing too that always kind of hung around the back of my mind was, we talked about this before. A lot of the rich, get rich guys, the flipping like, what's that guy's name? Ty?
Oh, Kai Lopez.
Yeah, it's just
a freaking Lamborghini. Hey, just hanging out, reading a book a day.
Then he says how many.
Lamborghini.
My favorite one is this house has 56 doors. He said how many doors the house had. I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. How many doors? He's such a douche.
Scam artist.
He is. But every single one of these guys, what they talk about is...
Kai Lopez, I don't know that you're actually a scam artist. Please do not sue me. That was just an opinion.
No, he's a douche. So, but what a lot of them talk about is get a mentor. So find some guy that already is where you want to be, attach yourself to his hip, find out what he does and how he does it, and learn from him. So it's a whole like... You see these guys that are super rich from Timpview or where we went to high school, and they follow in the family business. Well, their mentor is their dad. Like, it's very hard to lose when your dad.
It helps when your mentor gives you a crap ton of money too. But.
Yes, and then a job that But then he shows you the ropes. This is how you maintain it and sustain it and whatever else, and you're off and running. But I was looking around in my company and I was just like, I don't want to be anybody here. There's no one I can see myself attaching myself to their hip, learning all the tricks of the trade. I just kind of didn't want anyone's life.
Right.
And then I remember I sat down and watched, James Dasher's gotten into a little bit of trouble recently, but like I sat down and saw James Dasher in like kind of a more intimate setting, and he was talking about like I had to go down to South Africa and go to his cameo in the Maze Runner 3 movie and all this stuff. And I'm just like, you want that life.
Cool.
That sounds cool. I could do that. I could definitely do that. And that was another thing. Just little things just kind of started shifting me in a certain direction.
You know, it's funny. We watched that Fighter and the Kid podcast episode with Chris D'Elia and Will Sasso were on there.
Yeah.
And that that interaction between those guys, I had that feeling with those guys. I'm like, dude, I mean, I'm not a comedian, but how they had so much fun just being morons, but skilled morons, you know, like that, basically just hanging out with your buddies, and all your buddies happen to be professional comedians. Like that's got to be the best hang in the world.
I tell you, man, being paid, monetizing your passions. That's how I put it. This is the next 2 years. I want to monetize all my passions.
Right.
How could you possibly live a better life?
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm incorporating my kids into it, and especially now that they've learned how to edit all these videos and stuff, it's gonna be awesome. A little family business, monetizing the passions, man. If you can monetize your passions, you have made it in this life. What more could you want?
Yeah, there you go.
To monetize them extremely much so.
What more could you want? More monetization.
More monetization. Yeah, there's always that. But
yeah, but I mean, then that's cool, but you have been writing and not getting paid for it.
Yes. Yes, I have.
So it's not like it's all about money.
No, it's true.
It's about being able to do what you want to do and do it. I mean, you got to make money in this world to survive. So it'd be fun to make a lot of money, but being able to do what you want to do full time, you got to monetize some of it in order to do that so that you can live that fulfilled life.
Yeah, and I know like money doesn't buy you happiness, but I've done a lot of cool things with money. And
yeah, it buys air conditioning, which is happiness, which makes me happy.
New Zealand wasn't free.
Right.
But it was life-changing. Like, I could never go to Disney World again the rest of my life and be totally fine. But Universal was awesome. Going to Harry Potter World was sweet.
Yeah.
But, we're not going to foot that bill anytime soon again. That's pretty rough. But, again, like, did I tell you, I don't know if I told you this one or not. So I have an empty lot next to my house. Did I tell you about this?
Oh, Hobbiton?
Yeah. Like, people think like that's such a goofy idea, but like, think about it. Like, I'm only going to live on this earth for however many years and only going to make a certain amount of impact. What a cool way to spend part of your life. Building a Hobbiton next door to your house on a third of an acre. That's so freaking sweet. No one does it because people, when they grow older, become tools. They just forget to be cool. I don't know. Like I still, as I said, building the secret door, building this whole flipping home office, putting the Excalibur in the rock. Like,
right.
People forget. They just forget, like, when I was a kid, what would be cool? Remember we were talking about the video games we wanted to design when we were kids?
Right.
And it's like, I'm still thinking back, like, those are still great ideas. Like, they're still awesome ideas. And with a book, I get to incorporate some of that, some of those kind of ideas. But, like, yeah, somewhere along the lines we just forget that stuff, or we get interested in other things. I don't know. And maybe I just, my ideas didn't change. They just sort of evolved or grew.
Well, so E. Cummings, the poet, he said, it takes courage to grow up and become who you really are.
Yeah, I just maybe have a low sense of inhibition or something. So I find it very comfortable to be a big kid. I don't know. But yeah, certain concepts still, like the secret door concept. I want a secret door in my house. I just never outgrew it. I just like, that's always cool. It's never not going to be cool. But like, okay, people say like, oh, building the Hobbits next door is really bad for resale value, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, so what? That's what I want. I put a sword in the stone. Okay, yeah, I probably ruined that sandstone block. I don't care.
How dare you?
It's awesome. It's a reflection of who I am. It's a part of me. It's like
modern art.
Neighborhood. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There you go. Neighborhood Hobbiton. Have you ever heard of a neighborhood Hobbiton? No. I would love to be the only reason you've heard of it. I would love to have my name attached to that investment. Absolutely. What an awesome way to leave your mark on the world. He was the neighborhood Hobbiton guy. Yeah, he was a bit weird, but like, he brought a flipping neighborhood Hobbiton. We don't know what to do with it now. He's dead. Like, it's a weird thing around to bulldoze, but like, I mean.
Sheriff shows up. I don't think this was zoned for.
What are you going to do? It's like my backyard. You know, I can put a Hobbiton in my backyard. Anyway, I don't know. I just think, I've told students this. I said somewhere along the lines, we just forget how to be awesome. Growing up, did you ever want to be this? You know, you saw your friends that had strict parents, how uncomfortable it made everybody and how weird it made everybody. You know, you didn't want to ever go over to their house. I'm like, when do you make that decision? I'm going to be the dumb parent. You didn't like them growing up, so why become one?
Yeah.
Like, you had all these ideas that you wanted to do, and somewhere along the lines, you just kind of, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe life just beats it out of you. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, I mean, you also have real responsibilities. The reality of modern life hits you square in the face sometime in your early 20s. You got to pay bills, and then you do the things you think you want, like buying a house and buying cars. And then you got to pay for it all.
Building a neighborhood Hobbiton, you know.
Building Hobbitons, you know.
The things you always thought.
The things you do.
The things that society tells you to do to bring you happiness.
I had a dime for every time society told me to build a GD Hobbiton.
Telling you. Yeah. Well, it is almost 1 a.m. There you go. We're not recording this at the normal time, but maybe this is the normal time. Who knows? It's like I got to get up and go to work tomorrow. But yeah, we'll touch on a bunch more stuff. This is good. We'll kick it off. I'll see if the microphone's all worked out and sound worked out, but this is exactly what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
Talk about stuff that's meaningful and talk about stuff that's fun and entertaining, and I think that we've got an interesting take on, or can at least add some value to the discussion, whether it's Avengers or whether it's following your dream. There you have it. Conversation between me and my bro, Dr. Captain Steve Thayer. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully you got something out of it. And hopefully you will come back for further episodes. This has been episode 1 of Calling All Nerds. Hope to see you next time. Just answer the call.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Calling All Nerds. To find out more about Mike, his novels, blog posts, videos, and everything else interesting, go to mike-thayer.com.